2025, I don't know how Kathy feels, but I personally feel it's probably the biggest year of our lifetime so far. I think it's absolutely immense.
Excited to talk about this year, which is special in so many ways. Came up with kind of the big picture view of completions and beginnings. And this is really quite significant, I think, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I find it really, truly remarkable that in the next 18 months, we are going to see all of the outer planets changing signs. And a lot of that happening in 2025. So it really is remarkable in terms of a shift of energy. And I think we're moving into a completely new paradigm through 2025.
And the way that these planets are changing signs, this wave pattern where they move into the new sign, but then they go back to the old sign. We're going to be feeling this wave, this shifting, beginning, completion, beginning, completion. So energetically, I think this is going to be fast. They start the new development, but then they scoot back in their old sign. And Pluto is fully into Aquarius right now. 2026 is like a resolution year. They're finally in these new signs. They're cruising forward. It's 2025 that we have such a fascinating pattern going back and forth and back and forth. Anything you want to add?
Super helpful chart, Kathy. And it's a chart that people can refer to all through the year, but it really emphasizes what a year of transition 2025 is.
I don't know when in history we had such a year where the outer planets were doing this, especially because Saturn and Neptune moving together in this phase. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah, right, I haven't been able to find the time in history either, actually. It's quite remarkable.
Okay, so why don't you talk about Pluto in Aquarius now that it's finally in the sign fully?
Yeah, there's so much to say about this, and I have several videos out there on YouTube about Pluto in Aquarius because I could spend a whole day on this. But just to be focused here, historically, it has always, when Pluto has moved into Aquarius, out of Capricorn, of course, there has always been a shrinkage in top-down power. And at the beginning of a shift of power to the people, always, whether you're looking at the 1500s, the late 1700s, whether you're looking at the church or autocratic monarchies, or perhaps today you might consider corporations and other top-down controlling institutions, whatever form it takes, the pattern is always the same, that there's a reduction in the domination of those top-down institutions, and just the beginning of the shift of power to the people. And I think we can see this already with the revolution starting to happen in farming, in the Netherlands, in France, in the UK, in the US. This is just the beginning, and also a surge in technological innovation that is going to go right across the spectrum of science, medicine, aviation in particular, I think. And this is going to be really fascinating.
And it's just beginning. It's just beginning. I mean, this is what we need to remind people. Pluto stays in a sign for a long time, 20 years. And we're just tapping into the beginning part of this phase, and it's going to grow and grow and grow. We also have a lot going on with Saturn and Neptune as they finish this cycle in Pisces. Neptune takes about 14 years. And Saturn joining it at the very last degree of the sign.
Yeah, and this is so interesting because we have had, we're all well aware, some very extreme and tragic events, be they war, be they extreme flooding. We have the South Carolina issue, the Hurricane Helene. So, we've had some really extreme situations. And what that has done is bring people together with a great deal of compassion. Communities have pulled together. People from across the world have sent healing, have sent money to charities. And there is a real feeling of we are one. There, by the grace of God, it could have been us. And so that has heightened the compassion, I think. And also Neptune, particularly in Pisces, is increasing everyone's psychic sensitivity. And don't worry, it hasn't happened to you yet. It's an ongoing thing.
this whole spiritual dimension is ripe for development. And if we consider Neptune being this high spiritual, formless, evanescent, floaty, spacey energy, and Saturn being the practical planet, I always imagine that, especially Neptune in Pisces, is like a helium balloon that will just float around if you let go of the string. But Saturn puts an anchor on it and brings it down into the earth form. So we are learning how to take charge of our own spirituality. This next graphic, I chose this image mindfully because, you know, as I scan through 2025, and again, I feel this pendulum swinging between two energies, and how we react to that. Just when we get used to Saturn and Neptune hitting the last degree of Pisces, it shifts into Aries, which is a totally different dynamic. And then just when we get used to that, it shifts back to Pisces. So this pendulum swinging, you know, we're going to be feeling that. We're going to be feeling the impact of energies switching. So completions and beginnings. Keep this image in mind, because if you understand that, I think you're going to go through this year with a little bit more harmony.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that graphic. Thank you, Kathy.
So Pam, let's start off talking about Saturn and Neptune when they move into Aries, when they finally leave Pisces. And we're going to have the timing of this in the next slide. So before we talk about the timing, let's just talk about the energy dynamic. So when they move into Aries, why don't you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I think while they are still in Pisces, it can be a time of a lot of dreaming, a lot of escapism, a lot of meditation, perhaps on what your ideal life would be, or an ideal dimension to your life. And once they move into Aries, that is much clearer. It's action. It's a cardinal fire sign. It's taking action. Okay, what are we going to do to make that real? And I feel that very strongly. And I think for many people, and Kathy's going to talk about the personal side, of course, but for many people, it's a whole new you that you've been dreaming about during Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. I think more spiritual leaders will come through, but please use discernment, because Neptune can, it can in its shadow side be linked to deception or what's true, what's not. It can be quite shadowy. So always check in with your heart.
Yes.
As to, is this person legitimate, authentic? Do they have integrity? Are they acting for your highest good and for humanity's highest good? That is going to be very important as we move forwards in terms of who emerges.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember Aries is a fire sign and it's cardinal, and what it's really working on is action. Taking action, movement forward, pioneering, initiating something new. But the biggest difference between Aries and Pisces is that Aries is focused very much on self-sufficiency, very, very much on bringing forward that energy and taking charge with courage, being brave.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. Yeah, it's a whole new start, isn't it, Kathy, for many?
I'm very excited about it going into Aries. I love Aries energy. So in this slide, it may look complicated, but really what I wanted to show were the wave patterns of timing. Again, it is so fascinating that we have Saturn and Neptune moving in this wave together, within months of each other. So Saturn in Pisces starts off in 2025, goes from January, and in late May, Saturn will move into Aries. Neptune will stay in Pisces until late March. So we have the first several months of the year with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. Neptune moves into Aries first, Saturn follows. Then they both stay in Aries through the summer months, through late spring and into the summer, and actually into fall for the northern hemisphere here. I'm speaking of the seasons per the northern hemisphere, because a lot of people from Australia and the southern hemisphere are listening. But Saturn will go into Aries early September. Neptune goes into Aries will go will leave Aries and go back into Pisces in September. Neptune will leave Aries and go back into Pisces end of October. So we get this delicious time in late spring and all through the summer and into the fall with Saturn and Aries and Neptune and Aries. Then they go back, Saturn and Neptune retrograde back into Pisces from September, October timeframe until the early months of 2026, at which time then they zoom forward and they don't go back into these signs. Very interesting pattern.
Yeah, and they become exact to the degree and minute conjunct 20th of February 2026. So it's almost like through the late spring and summer, as Kathy is, this is a great chart again, Kathy, that we get a taster, we get glimpses of how this is going to work in the world and in our own lives. And Saturn conjunct Neptune, as many of you know, has a very reliable 36-year cycle. But I haven't been able to find a time in history when that conjunction has happened at 0 of Aries. Somebody wrote to me and said that it last happened 12,960 years ago. I haven't been able to validate that, but either way, it's a very long time. And so this is quite remarkable as the very first degree of the zodiac. I call it the creator degree. It's a whole new level of initiating. And that Saturn-Neptune cycle, 36 repeating cycle, resonates to Russian history because those conjunctions happened in recent time in 1917, Russian Revolution, 1952 and 53. That was birth of Putin, death of Stalin. And then 1989, which was the collapse of the Berlin Wall and the beginning of the collapse of the Soviet Empire, Soviet Union. And this conjunction happens again, 2025, 2026. So there's going to be some kind of redefinition of Russia as all of those previous dates, 1917, 1952, 53, and 1989, they were all very clear boundary points to redefine Russia. So what's going to be happening this time around?
You know, the other thing, the United States chart has, for me, I've always questioned it because we don't know exactly when the United States was born, the time of day. You know, there are several different versions of it. But if you pick what's called the Sibley chart, which is the most common one that astrologers use, then it puts on the IC, which is the fourth house cusp, the Aries point. What was it, 0 or 1 degree Aries? I think it's 1 degree.
1 degree. 1 degree Aries. Yeah.
Which is where Saturn and Neptune are going to hit and activate. So for the US, this conjunction from Saturn and Neptune in Aries, called what I call it the Aries point, it's going to activate this in the US. Now, when the Aries point is activated specifically, Aries point reveals something. Something wants to be seen. Something comes into view. It's public focus. So there's going to be a lot revealed as we go through this year. And the other thing I talk about on a personal level, when Aries point is activated, if people are operating with deception or scandalously, you know, anything that isn't above board, it tends to become visible, tends to be seen. You tend to get caught. So this year, a lot's going to come into public focus and be revealed, and especially for the US.
I could not agree more, Kathy. I think 2025 is a massive year of revelation in a bigger way than we've ever seen before. We're just at the beginning of that.
Yep, on a personal level, just live your integrity and let it shine because something wants to shine. So on a personal view with Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, it connects with our inner hero. It connects with courage, initiative, being brave, having empathy, which is Neptune. And what empathic people need to learn is that it's okay for them to have boundaries. It's okay for them to learn to turn their senses on and off on command, which is something in my book, Activate Your Intuition. I'm going to talk about that because it is an essential skill to learn to have those boundaries. Well, Saturn and Neptune in Aries helps us learn that sensitivity and empowerment, sensitivity and courage, sensitivity and confidence, because Aries is about confidence. It's
Yes.
courageous.
Awesome.
No, I would agree completely. And of course, our empathy is going to be heightened, not only because Neptune is still going to be sort of in and out at the end of Pisces, but also because the North Node is moving into Pisces. So our empathy is going to be heightened. So we're going to need the boundaries even more because of that.
Bringing it down to earth and making it work, not letting it control you, but you having a sense of control in your own psyche for how to manage it. Yeah. All right, so we talked about the pendulum and the movement with Saturn and Neptune going back and forth between two signs, and now we have this also with the planet Uranus. Just imagine in your mind hearing these balls going whack, click, because we're going to be feeling an impact from that as Uranus hits the last degree of Taurus, moves into Gemini and back. And here's the timing of this.
And those energies are so different, Kathy, aren't they? Taurus to Gemini. I mean, Taurus is fixed earth, it's solid, it doesn't want things to change. Gemini is mutable air, it wants to change all the time. It wants to move around lickety split really fast. They are utterly, utterly different energies, and we're all going to feel that somewhere in our lives.
Absolutely, very much. Uranus entered Taurus in May of 2018. In July of this year, July of 2025, it will enter Gemini, and it will stay there until November. So in November, Uranus backs up into Taurus and it will complete that transit in Taurus until April of 2026. And there is a massive difference in how we experience Taurus energy versus Gemini. And actually, I would say that Uranus is much happier in Gemini than Taurus, because Taurus is fixed and resists change, and Uranus is all about change. It's about adventure. It's about growing and expanding. And Taurus goes, no. But Gemini goes, sure. Where, when, how? So I wanted to show this graphic, Uranus in Taurus. This is a photo that was taken by my good friend, great photographer, Shayla Craighead, when we were at a park here in Virginia Beach, doing a photo shoot for me. And I love moss and I love mushrooms. And I saw this, said, oh, get it. So she captured it. And I think it very much symbolizes Uranus and Taurus, because, the mycelium that goes with mushrooms and fungus, which is the Earth's internet. It's nature's internet, the ability to communicate through the earth, through the soil, but it's also very stable. So I think what Uranus and Taurus has been trying to teach us since 2018 is to be present in the now, to be available, to have all of our atoms in this moment. Take a deep breath, trust, and know when you need to get information, it will come in, and then you take action. And so Uranus and Taurus, I think, has been trying to get us to trust that we always get information when we need it, because Taurus likes to get it in advance because that's how it feels safe. Let me know in advance. Let me have it planned out, because then I feel safe. And Uranus and Taurus has been offering something new. So we get to fine tune that all this time when Uranus is hitting the very last degree of Taurus, and connect with the earth and feel that nourishment.
Yeah, it's a beautiful image, Kathy. And of course, while Uranus has been in Taurus, we've had all kinds of advances in digitization of currencies, because Taurus is linked to wealth and currencies, and also lots of extreme weather events, because Uranus is particularly linked to strong winds and storms, and Taurus is the earth herself. And so we've had that manifestation as well, and that's going to continue, obviously, particularly through the last few degrees of Taurus, I would say, because it brings things to a culmination as it moves through those last few degrees.
Yeah, because just the same with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees. That's the anaretic degree. And Uranus in Taurus at 29 Taurus, anaretic degree. And the very last degree of a sign creates an extreme pressure to really get what you were supposed to learn from that transit. So understand your ability to breathe and to be calm and to bring your focus back into this moment, which is how we manage anxiety, because anxiety is usually surging forward to some scary moment in the future. But when you bring it back into this moment and you ground yourself, then you're going to be able to really use Uranus and Taurus at the highest level and feel empowered. But it changes when it moves to Gemini. Look at the difference in the image. Feel it, everybody. Just feel that shift when Uranus goes into Gemini.
Yeah, and I think what you've just shared so beautifully, Kathy, sets us up very well for Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius, because both Aquarius and Gemini link to our nervous systems. And because those signs are so fast moving, our nervous system has the potential to get very jazzed up with the amount of information coming in. So I think that's wonderful advice. Uranus moving into Gemini, some of the very obvious manifestations of this are more galactic connections, because Uranus and the sign it rules, Aquarius, where Pluto is currently, are the sign and the planet most linked to our galactic family. Remember, they are our family. We are galactic beings ourselves. This is our lineage. And increasingly, I mean, many people channel galactic beings already. They are very loving, supportive beings here to help us evolve. And of course, we have a lot going on in our skies right now, and we anticipated this. It's my personal view that the galactics would not arrive in drones. It would be like humans arriving in a horse and cart. They have much more sophisticated technology than that. So that is my personal view. But at a higher level, yes, they are here to support us, because as I understand it, the Earth's evolution is one of the keys to the evolution of the entire universe. And that's why they're giving us such support. So please do not go into fear with whatever is occurring in the skies right now. I think Gemini is linked to local transport, buses, cars, that kind of thing. I think we're going to see huge innovations. Already, the prototypes for flying cars, and in fact, in northeastern England, in Coventry, an airport is being built for flying cars right now. New internets, new technological solutions, new social media platforms, particularly new internets and different social media channels that promise freedom, Uranus, that promise freedom of speech, Uranus in Gemini. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that moving away or resisting censorship as we move forwards. I think they're going to be big themes too.
And I think it helps advance this whole concept that our thoughts, our energy, and our thoughts and our words help co-create our reality. As Uranus goes into Gemini, our focus can be on the very basic self-fulfilling prophecy, which is be mindful what you are telling yourself, because you get to be right. And so paying attention to the words you use, the beliefs that you have, your foundational beliefs, and how that helps to create your reality. And this definitely works with Pluto in Aquarius side by side. And this definitely works with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, which is I'm going to be responsible for where I send my energy, where I send my mental energy, where I send my verbal energy. One last thing about Uranus and Gemini that I like is the curiosity will be very strong. And if you can surrender and relax and bring your energy into the present moment, brilliant new ideas can flow through you, and they'll pop in. They'll pop like popcorn.
They do.
If you can allow that. Now, it's not going to happen if you're scattered and if you're frenzied with your thoughts, thinking of the past, thinking of the future, all over the place. But if you can use what you learn from Uranus and Taurus, learn to center and be in the present moment, Then Uranus and Gemini. Oh my God. There is no limits to the creative potential you have with your thoughts and your ideas and your communications with other people. Very exciting.
Yeah, beautifully said. I really agree with that, Kathy, because the shadow side of Gemini is scattering because it's mutable air, it's divergent energy, isn't it? Very easy to get scattered. But yeah, we must become masters of our energy and our frequency. And I think Saturn-Neptune is very much part of that picture too.
And the role our mind plays, the role the subconscious plays in creating our reality, and the responsibility we have and the accountability we need to focus on in where we are sending our energy. So I'm excited about this.